Cavitation will not use glycerin as a conductive agent. Cavitation needs a water-based conductive agent to penetrate the dermis. This is one of the things that you guys need to grasp, especially if you're working with a dual head. So something like the S shape, which will have cavitation and radio frequency. You cannot apply glycerin and use the cavitation handle in that dual head because there'll be a redundancy. The cavitation handle will not surpass that glycerin mineral mix, okay? So moving in with cavitation, we are always going to use a water-based conductor. So something like ultrasound gel and or aloe is something that we like. There are a bunch of recommendations, of course, in our private Facebook groups and our online communities. Now, to avoid the shock to the system, I do typically like to heat up my ultrasound gel. Now, just as with the radio frequency, we are going to work in sections, okay? Now, because I'm going to work in a section, I'm not going to apply the gel all over the body. The reason for this is because as I work in this section, the gel over here will start to evaporate because it is water-based, and then I'll have to reapply. So there's no sense of increasing my overhead for no reason. I'm only going to apply the gel where I'm working. You'll also notice that I'm applying with a brush and I'm not just squeezing it on the client and then putting my handle in. The reason for that is that will add to buildup on your handle, okay? And overuse of your ultrasound gel. So again, it's a product, it's a cost, it's an overhead. Also, you know, application with a brush, I'm using a silicone brush, is going to increase that client experience. It feels a lot nicer than just having that poured right on you. We are going to grab our cavitation head, guys. Before we turn it on, we are going to place it on our client, okay? Cavitation works with sound frequency. So I always say, imagine a little pin coming out of this head. That's what's happening with the sound frequency. The sound frequency is creating waves. So when applied, it's going to surpass the skin and it's going to go down into the subcutaneous fatty tissue and it's going to compromise, or in our industry, break down that fat cell, okay? Now, if you have it on before if you have the machine on before you place it on the skin, we're going to get deflection off the skin, which means that sound frequency is going to bounce off of that skin, okay? And it may cause a little pinch to your client. Sometimes what will happen if you are not using the appropriate amount of pressure with cavitation is you will get something called cavitation bumps. And these are little bumps that occur that look like an allergic reaction, which is really just due to the sound frequency penetrating off of the skin. So just bouncing off the skin. You'll get those little bumps because, again, we're dealing with sound waves. There is an actual force coming out of here, all right? So we're going to make sure we're in direct contact, that we've got a little bit of pressure before going on and turning on that cavitation handle, all right? With cavitation, you're going to move slowly, okay? So I say cavitation is like raking sand. So the cavitation handle is the rake and the fat cell is the sand. As we move across, it's only where we are raking that is being disturbed. So it's only where the cavitation handle is going over that is getting that sound vibration, and that is getting the disturbance or the breakdown of that fat cell, okay? Now, a couple tips and tricks. We are always, again, going to go in and treat the back. As the body, when we lie down, gravity pulls everything down, so your client's fat is going to be pulled to the back. Again, you'll see I'm moving relatively slowly, and as I come up around the sides, I am not losing contact with the body. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to sandwich some of that fat to get more vibration on the fatty tissue and that breakdown of that fat cell in one area, okay? Now, movement on the skin is always encouraged, so lots of lifting and pulling when you're working with cavitation very gently, because that's also going to stimulate that lymphatic clearing. So you're getting kind of like a 2-for-1 there. We're going to get some lymphatic clearing, so that flush of lymphatic fluids and that pickup of everything we've broken down throughout the treatment process. So we can go up even with the head and gently pull on the skin. It's going to clear out some of those lymph vessels. And we can come down working with the directional pattern of that lymphatic system. Okay. Time on tissue. All right. Time on tissue with cavitation, again, will be 10 minutes if you're using cavitation alone. This is the great thing about pairing the appropriate modalities. If we use laser lipolysis or we use radio frequency for prior to using cavitation, we've already broken down the skin's natural barrier to the treatment process or to frequency therapies with the laser lipolysis or the radio frequency. So now as soon as we go in with the cavitation head, we're getting direct breakdown of those fat cells. If you start with cavitation and you don't have anything else breaking down that time on tissue, you need to be working the area for a minimum of 10 minutes in the beginning, and then continuing for at least another 10 minutes. So you're going to save yourself time by working with that heat, break, and drain method, okay? So as I mentioned, I would work in sections. So we're going to work this half first. We're going to go ahead and work the other half, and then the abdomen. Typically, I work 10 minutes, and then another focus 10 minutes. But depending on your client's BMI, if they only have fat in a certain area, they're just coming for, you know, a little fupa fix, then just work that area and slightly above, okay? With fat reduction, I find that we tend to get a reduction on the, higher up, and then gradually on the lower abdomen. So I may spend more time on that working on the lower abdomen, okay? So cavitation, we're moving slowly, okay, across the body. We're never losing contact with the skin. We're allowing it to pull and get that clearing of the lymphatics. You can sandwich that fat as well. And we're working in sections. Cavitation will typically be on a continuous setting.
My phone just rang and now I can't hear you guys again.
Okay, please, you can turn off the mic.
Help.
You're going to have to fix that on the phone.
Hello?
So with cavitation, you will need for fat reduction a continuous setting, okay? Now this is like laser lipolysis, okay, guys? Is that if the frequency is not happening, if it's not going, it's not stimulating the fat at that time, okay? So just to reiterate, fat reduction, you'll always have it on a continuous mode. Those fat cells are only ever being vibrated when that sound frequency is occurring. If you have a pulse, you have a break in that vibration, and we're not stimulating the fat cell. Cavitation should never be used on the face, chest, neck, or breast, okay? Anywhere over the heart. It should also, we're going to avoid using it over the spine. There are some questions about going over bones. Now, just because the sound frequency gets higher, so your client hears it over the bones, doesn't mean we're causing any damage to the bones. Your bones act as a conductive agent, hence why we hear the ringing in the ears. Sound frequency is a noise, all right? And it's internalized in our clients. If there is enough fatty tissue, so for example, with my model here, I wouldn't go up above the ribs because we don't have enough fat, but you will get larger clients with a larger circumference. If there's enough fatty tissue to absorb that sound frequency, you can go over that ribs, and you can go over some of those bones, especially when we're working in the back. But you're always looking at an appropriate amount of fatty tissue. So we're using sound frequency based on the principles of sound, guys. Lower frequencies have deeper penetration into fatty tissue. Higher frequencies get more deflection. So it will be more of a superficial breakdown for that fat in that subcutaneous fat. Now, all of this, of course, is a lot more detail. The science behind how sound works is included in both our beginners and our advanced refreshers. These are things that are important for you to know as body contouring specialists because you need to know how your machines work. So just to reiterate, conductive agents, we need water-based conductive agents for something like cavitation, okay, for it to penetrate the natural barrier of the skin. Time on tissue would be 10 minutes, but we're reducing that. So again, time on tissue, it needs to be working for at least 10 minutes before we're getting the full effectiveness of treatment. But we're reducing that or eliminating that by having laser lipolysis first and or radio frequency first. You're going to move slowly and we're going to work in sections. We're going to sandwich the fat to get more targeted fat reduction, and we're able to lift the skin with our movements in the mapping of the lymphatic systems to help with the clearing, okay?